Theodore Roosevelt was born in New York City on October 27, 1858. He was born into a family of great wealth and privilege. His father, Theodore Roosevelt Sr., was a well-known businessman and philanthropist. His mother, Martha Mitty Bullock, was a Southern belle from Georgia. Young Theodore, or Teedy as his family called him, was a sickly child. He suffered from severe asthma. The attacks were terrifying. They often left him gasping for air, unable to breathe. He was a thin, frail boy who spent many nights propped up in bed, struggling for every breath. His parents worried he would not live to be an adult. Despite his physical weaknesses, Roosevelt possessed an incredibly curious and active mind. He was a voracious reader. He read everything he could find, from adventure stories to scientific textbooks. This love of books would stay with him his entire life. He developed a deep passion for the natural world. He would spend hours studying animals and birds. He started his own Roosevelt Museum of Natural History in his childhood bedroom. It was filled with specimens he collected himself, from insects to bird nests. His father once told him, "You have the mind, but you have not the body." He urged his son to build his physical strength. Taking his father's advice to heart, young Theodore began a strenuous program of physical exercise. He was determined to overcome his frailties. He lifted weights, he took boxing lessons. He pushed his body to its limits day after day. This was the beginning of his belief in the strenuous life. He believed that challenges, both physical and mental, were necessary to build character. He was remaking himself, transforming from a weak boy into a strong, robust young man. This transformation was not just physical, it was a profound act of will that would define his entire existence. This early struggle shaped the man he would become. It gave him an iron will and a deep sense of empathy for those who struggled. His love for learning and his passion for the outdoors were not just hobbies, they were central to his identity. He entered Harvard College in 1876, a confident and energetic young man, a world away from the sickly child he had been. The boy who once fought for breath was now ready to take on the world. The lessons of his youth of discipline, perseverance, and the power of will would guide him through every challenge that lay ahead. After graduating from Harvard and a brief stint in law school, Theodore Roosevelt felt a pull toward public service. Many in his wealthy social circle looked down on politics. They saw it as a dirty business, unfit for a gentleman. But Roosevelt saw it differently. He saw it as an arena, a place where a man could fight for what was right and make a real difference. In 1881, at the age of just 23, he was elected to the New York State Assembly. He immediately made a name for himself as a reformer, fighting against the corruption that was so common in the politics of the day. He was energetic, outspoken, and impossible to ignore. Tragedy struck Roosevelt in 1884. On that very same day, in the very same house, both his beloved wife, Alice, and his mother, Mitty, died. He was devastated. He wrote in his diary, "The light has gone out of my life." To escape his grief, he fled to the wild Dakota Territory. He bought a ranch and became a cowboy. He learned to ride and rope, facing the harsh realities of the American West. This time in the Badlands was healing for him. It toughened him further and gave him a deeper appreciation for the American landscape and the rugged individuals who inhabited it. He returned to the East a changed man, ready once again to enter the political arena. He held a series of important positions. He served as a United States Civil Service Commissioner, fighting for government jobs to be awarded based on merit, not political connections. He became the president of the New York City Police Board, where he walked the streets at night to make sure officers were doing their duty. Later, as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, he pushed to modernize the American fleet, believing a strong Navy was essential for a strong nation. In every role, he brought his signature energy and a tireless commitment to reform. His fame soared during the Spanish-American War in 1898. He resigned his post with the Navy to form a volunteer cavalry regiment known as the Rough Riders. It was a diverse group of men, from Ivy League athletes to Western cowboys. Roosevelt led them in a courageous charge up Kettle Hill in Cuba, a feat that made him a national hero. When he returned from the war, his popularity was immense. He was easily elected governor of New York. His relentless drive for reform, however, made some powerful political bosses nervous. To get him out of New York, they arranged for him to be nominated as vice president in 1900 on a ticket with President William McKinley. The political bosses who made Roosevelt vice president thought they had safely sidelined him. The vice presidency was seen as a powerless, dead-end job. But fate had other plans. On September 6, 1901, President William McKinley was shot by an anarchist. 8 days later, McKinley died from his wounds. At the age of 42, Theodore Roosevelt suddenly became the 26th President of the United States. He was the youngest president in the nation's history. His arrival in the White House was like a force of nature, bringing a new energy and a new style of leadership to the country. Roosevelt saw the presidency as a bully pulpit. He believed it was a powerful platform from which to speak directly to the American people and advocate for his agenda. And he had a bold agenda. He believed the government should be a force for good in people's lives. One of his primary targets was the massive corporate monopolies or trusts that controlled huge parts of the American economy. He believed these trusts had become too powerful, stifling competition and hurting ordinary citizens. He became known as the trust buster, using the power of the government to break up these large corporations and ensure a square deal for all Americans. This square deal was the central theme of his domestic policy. It was a promise of fairness for workers, consumers, and business owners alike. He supported labor unions in their disputes with management, a rare position for a president at the time. He pushed for new laws to protect consumers, most famously the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act. These laws were passed after shocking reports revealed the unsanitary and dangerous conditions in the food and drug industries. Roosevelt believed it was the government's responsibility to protect the public from harm and to ensure a level playing field for everyone. People were captivated by their new president. He was a man of action. He was constantly in motion, whether he was boxing in the White House, going on long hikes, or giving fiery speeches. He invited writers, artists, athletes, and explorers to the White House, filling it with a vibrant intellectual and physical energy. The American public had never seen a president like him. He was a larger-than-life figure, and his personality was a key part of his political power. He made people believe that anything was possible and that America was on the cusp of a great new era. From his earliest days, Theodore Roosevelt held a profound love for the natural world. As president, he saw that America's wild places were disappearing at an alarming rate. Forests were being cleared, animals were being hunted to extinction, and natural wonders were being destroyed by unchecked development. Roosevelt believed that it was a national duty to protect these resources for future generations. He made conservation a cornerstone of his presidency. He argued that the nation's natural heritage was as important as its political or cultural heritage. This was a revolutionary idea for its time. Using his presidential authority, Roosevelt took bold and decisive action. He set aside more federal land for protection than all of his predecessors combined. He created the United States Forest Service and appointed his friend, Gifford Pinchot, to lead it. Together they championed a new policy of sustainable use, managing the nation's forests for both commercial use and recreation. Roosevelt established 150 national forests, 51 federal bird reserves, 4 national game preserves, and 5 national parks. He used the Antiquities Act of 1906 to declare 18 new national monuments, including the Grand Canyon. This commitment to conservation is perhaps his most enduring legacy. When we visit a national park today, from Yosemite to the Grand Canyon, we are walking in the footsteps of Theodore Roosevelt's vision. He understood that these places were not just resources to be exploited, but treasures to be cherished. He believed they were essential to the American character, providing a space for reflection, recreation, and a connection to the wildness that had shaped the nation. His actions ensured that these magnificent landscapes would be preserved for all time, for all people. More than a century after he left office, Theodore Roosevelt remains one of the most compelling figures in American history. He is remembered as the trust buster, the rough rider, the conservationist, and the man who believed in the strenuous life. He is carved into the granite of Mount Rushmore, a permanent testament to his impact on the nation. But his true legacy lies not just in stone, but in the national parks we enjoy, the cleaner food we eat, and the idea that the government can and should work for the public good. He was a man of contrasts, an aristocrat who became a champion of the common man, a hunter who became our greatest conservationist. He was and remains the man in the arena.